new wave, but it's a new age where the kids on the fringe have a TV set in the pockets, nowhere to run away. All the freedom, communication, news station, 24 hours a day. Is there a problem? You tell me what's your name, what's your game? Can hardly wait just to give it away. You're out of your head and out of your mind, so off the wall, but you're still alive. Yeah, I found a new place to buy cassette tapes. Now we're rolling around on a box on wheels. No distractions, it's more interactions. I found a new way, reach out and touch faith, and music's to follows me with no distractions. You tell me what's your name, what's your game? Can hardly wait just to give it away. You're out of your head and out of your mind, so off the wall, but you're still online. Yeah. What are we choosing? I feel like you're losing me. Well, who are we fooling? The voice is loud, but around and around we go. What are we choosing?
Hey everyone, it's Greg Staley from Diverge Media. Thank you for joining us tonight. And just to bring in, he's still muted, unmuted.
Hello.
There it is.
Interesting song choice for tonight. I haven't heard that one before.
I've been using it for the last few weeks. It's something I've been digging, but watching from Nibiru. I'm not sure where that is. But hey, everybody, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. Make sure to subscribe. We do live shows every 2 weeks. Me and Project do a live show on Wednesday nights at 8:30 p.m. And then every Sunday you can catch me and Paul Staley Sunday with the Sunday show live at 3 p.m. But let's get into what we have tonight. So we're talking about 9 different experts, 9 doctors that are calling for debate on the current handling of COVID. And we're talking about one of the, to me, the most fundamental things was violated. That is the justice system. And I think it was an egregious violation. We're going to be speaking about Pastor James Coates and the release from the Justice Center there. And we'll go through that. But just to keep it light for the start, for still people coming in, we're going to play a video here. I think it's from Liberty Watch America. I'm not sure, but we're going to watch it. It's a Bill Mayer. We put it up on the Facebook page, but maybe you've seen it and maybe you haven't, but I wanted to show this one to everyone. So this is Bill Mayer talking about the cases.
Infection rates went down. Texas lifted.
All right, let's pull this up.
This was
Its
interesting.
COVID restrictions recently, and their infection rates went down, in part because of people getting outside to let the sun and wind do their thing. But to many liberals, that can't be right, because Texas and beach-loving Florida have Republican governors. But life is complicated. I've read that the governor of Florida reads. I know we like to think of Florida as only middle school teachers on bath salts having sex with their students in front of an alligator. But apparently the governor is also a voracious consumer of the scientific literature. And maybe that's why he protected his most vulnerable population, the elderly, way better than did the governor of New York. Those are just facts. I know it's irresponsible of me to say them. Look. Here's what I'm saying. I don't want politics mixed in with my medical decisions. And now that everything is politics, that's all we do. If their side says COVID is nothing, our side has to say it's everything. Trump said it would go away like a miracle, and we said it was World War Z.
There you go. So that's, Bill Maher's not typically somebody I would find myself agreeing with, but there he is. He nailed that. And Bill Maher? Maher? I was saying, man, see, that's how little of a fan I am. So, his name is pronounced as Maher. I'm getting roasted. But anyways, so that's him talking about lockdowns. Obviously, Texas has been seeing decreases in numbers. I wish I had I think it's on Twitter. I think I shared it, but Anthony Fauci's questioned about it, and he's asked, like, well, why are the cases going down? I think it was Jim Jordan's. Why are the cases going down? Where there's lockdowns, they're higher, and where there's no lockdowns, they're lower. And he didn't really answer the question. He basically said because lockdown states they're not following the lockdowns appropriately, and the ones that aren't locked down are doing the right measures and kind of locking down. So it was just like this ridiculous circle of logic that he employed trying to explain it away. But in essence, Texas has lifted the restrictions, continuing to see cases drop, hospitalizations drop, and even the NIH director, Anthony Fauci, can't put his hand on it. But let's go on to the next thing here, Broderick. I want to get right into these experts demand scientific debate on COVID with the premier. Obviously, a lot of people are very interested in that. It's kind of blowing up. We had over 3,000 visitors on the site yesterday alone. So it's a big article right now. Check it out if you haven't read it already, but let's pull it up for everyone here. So experts demand scientific debate on COVID with Premier Ford. Now, we make it our job here at Diverge Media to try to report on the stories that matter, things that don't get covered, that deserve coverage. And so let's just go off the bat. The list of doctors who are calling for this debate are as follows. Dr. H.C. Tenenbaum, the professor of laboratory medicine and pathobiology, Faculty of Medicine, University of Toronto. Dr. B.A. Mallard, professor of immunogenetics, Department of Pathobiology, University of Guelph. Dr. B.W. Bridle, associate professor of viral immunology, Department of Pathobiology, University of Guelph. Dr. M. Palmer, associate professor of biochemistry, University of Waterloo. And I won't read the rest, but you get the idea. These are qualified people. Psychology works, somebody, a clinical and chief psychologist in there. But these people are qualified to call out for this debate. So here's the questions they asked. They said, what are the actual dangers of SARS-CoV-2 by age? What is the rationale for the current vaccine rollout and alteration to the manufacturer's recommended vaccination protocols? What controls, I thought this one was interesting, and obviously we've done a lot of research and reporting on the PCR test. So what controls are in place to limit the number of cycles used in performing PCR tests to 30 cycles to avoid undue false positives, inflating the cases reported? How effective are stringent population-wide restrictions, and are they the best response given the collateral damage? So asking for a cost-benefit analysis on lockdowns. Now, the Lancet's reported that full lockdowns don't work. It's more so the other measures, which are healthcare capacity, what's the age of your population, how many comorbidities do you have, those things factor in more. And then they asked, why are multi-drug treatment measures proven to be highly effective not being employed to save lives in Ontario? And I have something on that. We'll talk about vitamin D. But Derek Sloan and the Liberty Coalition of Canada recently had a press conference where they were talking about this. And Derek Sloan brought up ivermectin and vitamin D. And I brought up a few studies. We did a report on that. We're going to touch on that a little bit later. But he brought up, why aren't we doing this as well? Because vitamin D has shown quite a bit of promise as a prophylactic taken daily. And ivermectin has shown quite a bit of promise as well. So the question is, why aren't we employing those multi-drug treatments that have a lot of backing and evidence behind them? So you can read the rest of the letter there if you want to go through it. But basically, there's another thing. They continued airing their frustrations. I want to add this in here for people. Again, we need to think about the full cost-benefit analysis. And part of that is understanding the costs that come with lockdowns. So the doctors added that these measures have led to unnecessary death of our seniors and collateral damage to our society's mental health, deaths of despair, drug overdoses, intentional or not, alcoholism, suicidal ideation, and worse. They continued airing their frustrations by saying that the education of our children has been hurt by comprehension. They added a sentiment that echoed Operational Underground Railroad director Tim Ballard's thoughts on the need for schools to stay open. They're the first line of defense, or one of the first line of defenses, in preventing child abuse and detecting it and reporting it. So very important, but you can read the rest of this here. They're calling for the debate. It needs to happen, but let's talk about that project. So one of the things I've said from the very beginning is if you're not willing to have a debate, I mean, if you're so right, like I've laid it, how many times have you heard me say this? Well, if you're so right as a government and you know that your position's justified and validated because the science says so, right? The science says so. Oh, everybody say the science says so, right? That's what they keep saying. We're just following the science. We're just following the best advice. We're following the science. And then you find out that's not the case, really. We're going to get into it a little bit more, but what's your take on these doctors wanting to debate? And from the very beginning, I said we need to have a debate. And to me, if you say you're following the science, then why aren't you having a debate and being open and transparent about the studies that are informing your measures and your protocol as a government? Why aren't you saying, hey, we read the BMJ study by so-and-so. We read the Lancet study by so-and-so. We read this, but that's what should be happening. And it hasn't happened on any level from the Ontario government or from any government in Canada. So what are your thoughts on this? I feel like if you're not willing to debate, we're kind of in a state of lawlessness until that can be heard in a court of law and the court can rule on that.
Well, like Christine Elliott said sometime last year, she was saying there has been a disagreement amongst the medical community, other communities, and the general public. Of course, there has been, and she continued to say that they're doing the best they can with the best information, whatever. At the end of the day, they may not ever debate those doctors because I don't think they want to be wrong. Because that if they were wrong, which they are in many degrees, then they're going to lose a lot of public trust, and it at the end of the day, it just looks bad.
Well, this is the thing, but that means at some point, if they're not willing to debate the measures because they're worried that it's going to lose them public trust, then why would it lose them public trust? So let's roll into the next story here. I'll try to keep my calm on this one, but I was physically angry writing this article today because once you understand the implications of what's going on in the legal system, it's frustrating as a Canadian right now. So let's move into Pastor James Coates in Alberta. Again, it doesn't matter if you're religious. It doesn't matter if that's your belief. That's not what we're talking about tonight. So let's pull it up. This is, oh man, Pastor James Coates is due back in court on May 3rd, but the court permits the government to avoid producing evidence on lockdowns at that May 3rd trial. So let's explain what that means. So the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms released a statement on the 16th of April, I believe it was, so just 4 or 5 days ago, about the upcoming court case of Pastor James Coates of Grace Life Church in Alberta, Canada, that will take place on May 3rd, 2021. The statement from the Justice Center, I say, is a harrowing one for all Canadians because they say the court granted the government's request that Pastor James Coates not be permitted to challenge the constitutional validity of Dr. Dina Hinshaw's orders at the trial. The government will not be required to produce scientific evidence in support of Dr. Hinshaw's orders. The release continued. Pastor Coates' charter challenge to the constitutionality and legality of Dr. Hinshaw's orders will be heard by the court at an unknown later date. This has been allowed even though the charter challenge to Dr. Hinshaw's orders was filed in the Court of Queen's Bench in December of 2020. So according to John Carpe, the president of the Justice Center, the courts have given the government until July of 2021 to file its scientific evidence, even though the Justice Center already filed its scientific evidence in January. So this is the scenario here. They said, you violated these bylaws, and he said, well, it violates my charter constitutions. I want, I believe they refer to section 24 of the charter, which says anyone whose rights or freedoms as guaranteed by this charter have been infringed or denied may apply to a court of competent jurisdiction to obtain such a remedy as the court considers appropriate and just in the circumstances. So we're in the court under a court concludes the evidence was obtained in a manner that infringed on the rights of freedoms guaranteed by this charter. The evidence shall be excluded if it is established that, having regard to all the circumstances of the admission of it in the proceedings, would bring the administration of justice into disrepute. So the second part of that is they can, okay, so I'll slow this down. The freedoms guaranteed the charter. The evidence shall be excluded if it is established that, having regard to all the circumstances the proceedings, would bring the administration of justice into disrepute. So I'm not a legal expert, not legally trained, but my understanding of reading this was they said they didn't want to hear the constitutionality of it because at this time it might bring justice into disrespect. Like the second part of that charter, I want to read it directly. But the admission of it in the proceedings would bring the administration of justice into disrepute. Yeah. So that's kind of the reason, was my understanding, and it's been delayed. But basically, you have the government coming after someone. He says, I want to exercise my charter rights. And they say, not right now. I'm physically angry reading this. The government shouldn't be allowed to kick the can down the road like this. So basically, and John Carpe, so part of the title tonight was justice delayed is justice denied. Somebody's rights are actively being violated. They've gated off his church, right?
Stolen his property.
Well, you say that. That's your take on it. I don't know. They gated off his property. They don't own it. They even and they're doing this, and they say, well, you can't you can't challenge it on the charter violations right now. Okay. And they keep coming after the guy. Like this blows my mind.
So what you're saying is that because they won't challenge the constitutionality, he can't get his church back?
No. That's not. But they're not allowing him to challenge the constitutionality of Dr. Hinshaw's medical measures and orders. So these measures that prevent the occupancy, right? They're not allowed to challenge the constitutionality. They said, I have right to freedom of religion. I have right to assembly. Right? We have charter protected rights. Mm-hmm. And section 24 says you can challenge when those rights have been violated, but there's an if in there, or a but, that says, and I'm going to read, wherein proceedings under subsection 1, a court concludes that evidence was obtained in a manner that infringed or denied any rights or freedoms guaranteed by this charter, the evidence shall be excluded if it is established that, having regard to all the circumstances, the admission of it in the proceedings would bring the administration of justice into disrepute. So my understanding was there's no proof that anybody's made anyone sick at the church, including the pastor, anyone in the congregation, and it's a religious right, and they're saying we're not hearing that right now, and they used, I think, the second part of that section 24 to delay it. Let me pull it up, because I want to show people where I'm getting this from, because it's not just like I'm thinking this. I got this from the JCCF release, which there's something included in there. I'm going to just pull it up. Sorry.
So since the government doesn't want to show their evidence, do you think this is going to end up in a mistrial, or do you think
no,
that's going in someone's favor?
Do not ask me about the administration or procedural processes of court. Like, that is not at all my strong suit. All I'm saying is, okay, let's just read. When it's legal, it's got to be a little bit careful here. So they posted this. I'm going to back out here. I'll pull up my screen share. Oh, we have it. Okay, so they posted this. This is the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Court permits government to avoid producing Dr. Hinshaw's evidence on lockdowns on May 3rd trial of Pastor James Coates. Now, the Justice Center today announced that the trial of Pastor James Coates of Grace Life Church will proceed on May 3rd of 2021 at Provincial Court in Stony Plain. Okay, so will proceed. It's linked here. Now, it says in the Provincial Court of Alberta sitting at Stony Plain between Her Majesty the Queen and James Coates. So, notice of intention to raise constitutional argument. Well, I was reading this today, and you get down to the bottom here, and this is what I'm talking about. So they reference, I believe, that section 24 of the charter. So a stay of proceedings would be appropriate. Where is that? Yeah, okay. Yeah. As a result of the above charter breaches, Pastor Coates seeks a dismissal of the charge, or in the alternative, an absolute discharge, or in the further alternative, stay of proceedings. Where a charter violation has occurred as a result of actions, section 24.1 of the charter permits this court to provide an appropriate and just remedy. The Supreme Court of Canada has stated the charter requires that courts issues effective responsive remedies. Sorry, the court has stated by application, the court, just remedy, but I'll just skip down here. The Supreme Court of Canada has stated that a stay of proceedings can be entered where irreparable prejudice would be caused to the integrity of the judicial system if the prosecution were continued. That's that section 24 we just read. It would bring the administration of justice into disrepute and prejudice the integrity of the judicial system to permit the prosecution of a Christian pastor for exercising his most fundamental rights to lead his congregation in the manifestation of their religious beliefs to worship together in person. This without any evidence that his actions or the actions of his congregants in any way cause harm to another person or to the healthcare system, or that the prosecution's outlandish theory that restricting worship gatherings to 15% contributes to a net benefit in public health. Now, the only thing I'm not sure of is if this is their brief or this is from the court. I think this is from the court, which means, yeah, this is filed by tax in the, but this might be what they're saying on it. But again, we come back to here, and they're saying it's been stayed. But they say the government will not be required to produce scientific evidence in support of Dr. Hinshaw's orders. Government lawyers told the court that the Alberta government could not produce any evidence in support of Dr. Hinshaw's orders in time for the May 3rd trial. I should actually update that. I can't believe I missed that. Pastor Coates' charter challenge to the constitution and legality of Dr. Hinshaw's orders will be heard by a court at an unknown later date. So, you can, I mean, after 13 months, this is John Carpe. After 13 months of violating charter freedoms, the Alberta government refuses to present evidence in support of lockdowns in court. And unfortunately, the courts have permitted the government to delay facing accountability in regard to charter violations, states lawyer John Carpe, president of the Justice Center. And that's where he says justice delayed is justice denied. It is clear the government's approach to any challenge to its lockdowns policies is to withhold the evidence and delay it as long as it can. So, I mean, I've actually said this many times that I said they're going to, if every challenge that goes to court, they're going to delay it as long as possible.
Yeah, we saw that with Marwan Tabera, didn't we?
Well, what's even happened with that? We need to check in on that.
I was literally just Googling that, but I don't think anything has happened. They just kept putting out little articles saying that the case had just
so that one's
delayed.
Yeah, that one was delayed a couple of times, and that's the MP for, is it our area, Kitchener, somewhere here in Kitchener, but
yeah, so about 5 days ago, it's been delayed to next month again. So it's been going on since last summer, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean,
they've been delaying this. Holy.
Well, no. When did it get filed? It got filed.
It was.
Sorry, you're jumping the gun a bit here. No, he's saying they've had 13 months to produce evidence. It hasn't been filed that long. So in the charter challenge to Hinshaw's order, it was filed in the courts of Queen's Bench in December of 2020.
No, I'm saying in the Marwan case.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that one's been kicking around a long time, but this is. Yeah, sorry, we're crossing cases here, but this is a reoccurring issue in the court system of Canada where it's just delays. And again, guys, like for everyone here, if justice is delayed, it's justice is being denied to a certain extent. If someone's rights are being violated and you keep allowing them to be violated because the court system's taking too long, that's not a good way to go. And unfortunately, the wait times have gotten long, or not gotten long. They've been for a long time. So, yeah. All right. Let's move on here. On the independent media side of things, if you haven't seen this one, it's something you need to be aware of. But let's pull this up here. Our Trudeau minister says internet censorship bill will make Canadians safer. So we're going to keep an eye on this one. This is really important to us here at Diverge Media. And so we need people to be aware of this. We need people making a lot of noise about this because otherwise, I mean, it could be the death of independent media here in Canada. Heritage Minister Stephen Guilbeault will introduce the first ever internet control bill to be tabled in Parliament within the next couple of weeks. He revealed during a video conference, he said, "My job is to ensure the safety and security of the Canadian population." Guilbeault revealed that the legislation being tabled is the first step in creating a safer environment for all people online and not just for a handful. Regulating hurtful content, by the way, we already have a criminal code that protects against that kind of thing. Kawink. Hurtful content beyond what is already covered by the criminal code according to Blacklock. With the legislation we will be tabling, he said, it won't matter whether or not the company is Canadian. It won't matter where the company is registered or where the servers are located. Once a publication is flagged, it will have to be taken down within 24 hours of having it being flagged. There are a lot of other countries that are doing that right now. Yeah, a lot of other dictatorships and draconian nations. I'm not sure if very democratic nations doing that. Maybe I can be corrected.
It'll have to be taken down within 24 hours. There's no case. There's no.
Yeah, what is the remedy process going to look like?
I guess screw every mainstream social media then, because you can't run it off of there. But this is regarding the whole internet. Yes, or is this going to be worked through social media?
He says Guilbeault has previously cited surveys by the Canadian Race Relations Foundation showing 93% of Canadians believe online hate speech and racism are a problem. 80% want social media companies required to remove racist or hateful content within 24 hours. So this is where it gets dangerous. What's considered hateful content? Who deems hateful? If I criticize something and somebody doesn't like it, is that deemed hateful? Who decides? Is it going to be the Canadian government? No. Guilbeault said the conclusions of this survey are clear. Hate speech has no place in our society. Yeah. Catchwords, catchphrases without substance. He continued, almost half of Canadians either have experienced or seen violent or hateful content online. Canadians want to act, and that's exactly why we intend to introduce legislation. Our approach will acquire online platforms to eliminate illegal content such as hate speech, terrorist and violent extremism, child pornography, and non-consensual sharing of intimate images online. But again, the one that's concerning from independent media when I'm looking at that is hate speech. Again, is who decides what that is, and is criticism, does that land you in a hate speech category? We got to keep a close eye on that one. I'm very concerned. How many hundreds of millions? It's probably over $1 billion now, but we know that at least $600 million has been given out in media subsidy. So now maybe the next step is to come and, kind of police the other online content you don't like. I don't know. That's what I worry about.
It's funny because people who don't like.
Sorry, can I back that up before I forget? But they all sound like nice things. Like what he's saying, terrorism, but it's okay, but what are you actually defining as that? What is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, according to you? So that's where you got to look at the bill, because again, they could say hate speech and it could include people the government says are harmful. We don't agree with the government narrative on COVID. Am I harmful, hateful? Am I, you know what I mean? That's where I'm coming from. Sorry, go ahead.
You're making me lose my track of thought.
Come on, rookie.
Makes me angry.
Did you just strike out? Are you whiffing?
Okay, so if it is tabled, yes. So if it is tabled, how long? How long do you think that will take for them to vote in? They don't have a majority right now, but with the NDPs,
I don't think it will matter about majority or not. Green Party, NDP, and Liberals will all see a potential, the virtue signal, and capitalize on that politically. And I think they would love it. It will depend again. there's already laws in place. That's the first thing. The second is, what are the details going to be? Again, they all sound nice. We all want to eliminate hateful things. That's kumbaya, right? I joke about this all the time. But what are the nitty-gritty details going to say? What do they deem hateful? Who decides? That's dangerous territory, and we already have laws in place to protect against hate speech and things of that nature. So when's
you know that real life, oh, you hurt my feelings, I'm upset kind of thing. That sounds like what it's going to be like online. And when you listen to enough of Tom McDonald in certain songs, you can kind of expect what's going to happen.
I wouldn't be using Tom McDonald as my
not
gauge.
Exactly.
No, at all.
But
I wouldn't be using any musician as my gauge. Not saying he doesn't have truth in his songs, but again, that's not a. So, anyways,
No.
So you got a couple of articles for us.
Yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah. So what's the first one you're bringing up here? What do we got?
Let's go with Ontario schools.
Already.
I was trying to find my spot earlier and I couldn't.
Man. All right. So while you're doing that, let me know when you got it. I got this article in The Guardian. I wanted to pull up here. So The Guardian had rapid COVID testing in England may be scaled back over false positives. So this is a recent one. Basically, senior governments have raised urgent concerns about the mass expansion of rapid coronavirus testing, estimated that as few as 2% to 10% of positive results may be accurate in places with low COVID rates, such as London. So they said, at best, as of today, someone who gets a positive LFD result in, say, London has at best a 25% chance of it being a true positive, but if it's self-reported test, potentially as low as 10%. So anyways, they're looking at potentially pulling back. There's a leaked politician email in here, and they're kind of talking about pulling it back due to the high rate of false positives. You can check that article out if you look up The Guardian. Rapid COVID testing in England may be scaled back over false positives, or check out our Facebook page. I believe we posted it there. So back to you.
Okay, so of course, just over a week ago, Ontario schools were closed.
Mm-hmm.
Lachey flip-flopped over his decision within a day or two with Ford and with other officials. If he had even had any bit of a backbone to argue with them, I would more than assume he wouldn't have a job today. Probably why he didn't.
Are you talking about Lecce?
Yeah. Lecce?
I don't know. Stephen Lecce? I thought it was Lecce.
Yeah, the Minister of Education in Ontario. The Liberals wanted him fired.
Yeah, there's a petition by Stephen Del Duca of the Ontario Liberal Party, the leader of the Ontario Liberal Party, to have Lecce fired. So
I'm just wondering if the Liberals were in power right now. They're saying they would put kids in school still. Because that's what they said their plan was like 15 kids in a class.
I think they wanted a restriction of kids in class to 15. But I mean, this is what they were kind of pushing for pre-COVID. So to me, that's not a surprise. That's basically the same thing repackaged with a new environment.
It's just political theater, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were talking about around that size of class, like 15 to 20.
They wanted 15 to 20 in the last year.
Yeah, when in the last, they were negotiating the contract last time, they were talking like 15 to 20. And so to me, that they come out with 15 and they're trying to use this as, again, an opportunity. They just repackaged an old thing and said, listen, now it's because of COVID, we need 15 in the classroom. It's like, well, you guys wanted that before. So
they closed schools because they were worried about community spread. I mean, and at the end of the day, for children, the death stats aren't there. There's been 6 in all of Canada who have died.
Oh, and they likely, without even having it in front of me, but likely had other comorbidities that were contributing factors. So did they die from COVID? Unlikely. They probably died with COVID as a contributing factor.
Yeah. So what I found interesting from while writing this article was looking at the press release from that day when he decided to close schools. I believe it was April 12th. At the very bottom of that press release, if Kate wants to bring this up, it's quoted in my article. Prior to the April break, more than 99% of students and staff did not have a current case of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Since September, 99.2% of students and 98.6% of staff never reported a COVID-19 case.
Well, and multiple tests can be the same person. And my understanding is, I mean, what's the case definition? Let's go Ontario Public Health. Continue your thoughts. Sorry.
So they closed schools for less than 1% of COVID cases in the schools. And yeah, but they cited community spread as a concern. The effects, at the end of the day, these lockdowns have such detrimental effects on children. Increased kids help phone calls have more than doubled since 2019 to 2020. And not all students excel at online learning. There's so much that I wrote in this article. Please go check it out. If you don't already know all this, could take a read, share it around. One of the other things was that viral loads in children are much lesser than that of an adult. They don't spread it as easily.
Well, and when they do, it's in lower doses, so it's not. It's actually my understanding was it has the potential to help with immunity. There was a study I looked at. It was families with or households with children did better, like the adults did better. But I don't want to. Again, I shouldn't even have brought that up because I don't have that in front of me.
The article it was from Public Health Data in the Netherlands. It revealed that people over the age of 80 have a viral load 16 times bigger than that of children in the age of 12. So I just want to ask you a question, open up some more conversation. With you, Greg, I know your kids haven't been in publicly funded school since a long time ago during all this, over a year. But how have you seen lockdowns and in general them not being at school or not socializing enough affect them?
Yeah, so this is an uncomfortable question for me because obviously I love my daughters very much. And yeah, I pulled my kids out at the beginning of this when they said they were going to mandate. Was it when they said they're mandating masks? Or was it before even?
That was September.
Yeah.
Starting that.
So they were starting up in September, and I just made the decision. I said, no, not with the social distancing. And they're being really weird about the stuff they wanted to do, the social distancing. The hand washing measures are just a bit extreme, like kids are getting too much sanitizer exposure, things like that. And I took them out, and we've been homeschooling for a year now. And school is important in the sense that it's that place for kids to interact with other kids. I mean, she's at a young enough age that we're handling it. I feel like she's getting a good education. She's actually ripping through her schoolwork probably quicker because she's getting one-on-one time. That might change when she gets older. It might become harder, but it's hard on them. My daughter's very emotional this last bit. My oldest, the youngest. I mean, like my two youngest. Like my youngest literally was born. She's like a time lapse of this whole lockdown scenario because she was born at home basically at the beginning of COVID when the panic started, and then. Grace is like, she's 4 years old. She's so young that she doesn't really know. And so my oldest she's old enough to kind of remember, and that's what's tough. She's 6. She can remember doing stuff, and she started to get down, and she started that, like, why can't I do this, and why can't I do that? And I noticed she just seems to be more sensitive than usual. And it breaks me as a father. I'm not sure how, like, again, we try to get around other kids as much as possible, but it's not easy these days. And kids need it. They need to have that structure where they're around. And it's like when you're with other kids at a young age, that's the testing grounds. That's where you found out who you were as a person. You know, you did something stupid on the playground and somebody reprimanded you, and you weren't a part of the group or you were reprimanded by the group, so you learned, right, socially. And now we've just stripped kids of a lot of these experiences through school. Yeah, I'm frustrated. I get emotional thinking about it. That's why I fight so hard with what we're doing. Like, at least I can say that I fought and I did what the right thing was, and I had moral courage, and I stood against the grain when others weren't willing to. And I just think about my kids' future all the time, and I want them to be able to go back to just having stupid things, to just be kids again. It's gone to that point.
Sorry to ask you such an uncomfortable question, but
no, that's good.
I feel like people and viewers who don't understand, if there's anybody in here who don't understand why schools should be open, this is why. And
it's like my kid's a subset, but there's a ton of reasons why. I mean,
yeah, there's I list them all in my article, but there's increased suicide attempts among the youth. Like
doctors, I don't know the term for child physicians, but they're sounding the alarm. The amount of anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation and suicidal attempts that they're seeing.
Forge just hiding away.
Kids at 5 and 6. Kids at 5 and 6 years old shouldn't be depressed. You know, they shouldn't be anxious. And so, to have a family physician tell you, like, you're reading that, and it's like, I get emotional. It was a Nelson Mandela.
I'm sorry.
Nelson Mandela said you can tell a lot about a society by the way they treat the children. I'm paraphrasing, but we've failed them, and I'm so. I said it before, like, self-censorship is the thing that needs to stop happening. You self-censor in your home, so you have no moral courage when the time comes, and there's not enough people standing up. My kids, like, I'm only one person. It's just what it comes down to. There's not enough people standing up, and it takes time, and people are so worried about career and reputation and what people may say and the smears that they don't. And in a sense, we get angry about justice being kicked down the road, but we kick our problems down the road when we refuse to have the courage to stand up in the moment. I admire my wife. She got walked out of her job for standing up on the mask thing when all of this happened, like, very early on. And we know she was in the right. They approved the EI. It's more people need to be standing up. That's the honest takeaway. I don't mean to get emotional, but
it's understandable.
I wear my heart on my sleeve when it comes, to my kids and to kids in general, and just, obviously, if you know a bit about our history, like, we went through a lot of crap growing up, and it's one thing I don't have patience for, is seeing kids suffer. All right, let's move on here before I break down again. So go on to the next thing.
I don't show emotion easily, especially in front of an audience.
Either do I.
But while reading this, or while writing this that night, I couldn't help but think about my nieces, my nephews, and how it was just almost I'm gonna move on, but
Well, it's like it's the government policies and the general narrative that the media's taken, politicians have taken, it's just divided everyone. And to the point where it's like even family, I have my daughter be asking like, why can't we go see so-and-so? Why can't we go see so-and-so? They're worried about this and they did this and, they're concerned. So they don't want us around it's like, man, you're explaining this to a 5 and 6 year old and I'm having a 5 and 6 year old reason with me. And she already knows like when I'm going to say no. And so she'll be like, oh, is it because X, Y, Z? And she's like, man, she stole my kid. But she's just like, she'll tell me the reasoning behind why she thinks I'm saying no. And I don't have answers for her these days. And she's like, oh, why aren't we able to go do this, Dad? We just can't do it right now. It's like, I'd rather give that answer than constantly saying, because our government lacks any courage to stand against the grain and do what's right. I mean, it's not going to be a convenient like platform or place to put yourself as a politician, and you're going to be reprimanded. And you know what's going to happen? There's all these front runners that are doing all the work right now in the independent media and these politicians that are speaking up. The wind is changing, and we can see who has the courage right now. And eventually, people are just going to stand up behind the ones that did all the work, and they'll claim credit. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
let's move on to I put out an article last week. ICUs aren't overwhelmed, says Roman Baber, former Conservative Party, or
yes,
Progressive Conservatives for the
Ontario Conservative Party.
It's
Ontario Progressive Conservatives, I think.
The PCs, so the Progressive Conservatives.
No.
He's now an independent. I just want to talk about a few of the quotes that he put out in his article. He was saying our health system. So this is me. So our health systems have been a mess before COVID, correct?
Yeah. Actually, while you're on this, I'll pull that up. Continue.
And if I'm not wrong, they were more overwhelmed in the ICUs than before COVID. I believe. Okay.
You're catching me off. I'm trying to pull up the report.
You pull it up. No, I'll just continue. We aren't using the field hospitals yet that they've made, and they've laid off nurses. They laid off nurses before the second wave. Yes. They laid off nurses before the second wave. What, in 97 was it?
97 out of Sunnybrook Hospital, I think it was.
In Toronto. Is it Toronto area?
I want to say it's Toronto area, but don't quote me on that.
So. Sunnybrook is where they put up the one field hospital. Yeah, that would be Toronto, yeah. Yeah, so Roman Baber in the article says... Roman Baber, I cannot pronounce that name. He says 2 Ontario MDs, 1 in ICU, who works in ICU, told us today that many Ontario ICU doctors don't have full-time work and most are underemployed. He says Ontario's ICUs are fine, but if they aren't, it's not due to the variants. It's due to Ford government mismanagement. So with that, I wanted to bring up, I've seen on social media, one of my friends is a nurse in a few hospitals. I won't name them just for specific. But she posted on her story yesterday that she came to work. She went to where she was supposed to go. They told her to go to another floor. That floor told her to go to another floor. Surgery or whatever she's working in. And she keeps getting flip-flopped around to different areas, being of no help. And she literally said on her story, I thought we were in a pandemic. I thought they would need my help. And eventually she did get sent off to, I think, what she called the front lines, which would be COVID. stuff. She's been dealing with it for a while. She's been doing that stuff, but it makes you think, because she did have, I think she said she was working 2 jobs, 2 different hospitals. And she got, if she's still laid off, she said she had been laid off by one of them. She's only working the one.
Yeah, apparently there's like thousands of beds that could be staffed too if we had the proper employment. But this isn't a new issue. So we've been having this conversation a long time, but you can't look at what's happening today. Like, you can point out hospitals in the GTA that are overrun right now and say COVID, variants. And people go, yeah, because they've been taught to do that. But the reality is, you need to look at the healthcare system not in a vacuum of just 2020, 2021. You need to look what's previously happened in the healthcare system. And Doug Ford ran on ending hallway medicine in Ontario. That was a campaign cornerstone. We seem to be so forgetful in Canada and Ontario. But this is from the CBC, if you can pull this up. So this is an article they wrote. When did they write this one? January 22nd, 2020, and I show it all the time. But some of Ontario's biggest hospitals are filled beyond capacity nearly every day, new data reveals. Wow. Pre-pandemic, by the way. This is why I love this article. It's like right before this stuff kicked off. But it's they took January to June 2019. They were following the hospitals. Some of the hospitals were filled 100% occupancy nearly every day in the first half of the year. Yeah. So days over 100% capacity, Richmond Hill, 179 days. Peterborough Regional Health, 176 days. Niagara, 176 days. Hamilton, 172 days. South Lake Regional, 170 days. Health Sciences Sudbury, 168. Ajax, 160. Are we getting the idea yet? Okay. CBC News analyzed data for all 169 acute care hospital sites. Important. In the province during this 6-month time frame. Some of the key findings: 83 hospitals were beyond 100% capacity for more than 30 days. I will repeat: 83 hospitals were beyond 100% capacity for more than 30 days before COVID. 39 hospitals hit 120% of capacity or higher for at least 1 day. 40 hospitals average 100% capacity or higher. 40 average 100% of capacity or higher. So when they say, guys, the hospitals are overwhelmed, COVID, I'm going, yeah, they might be overwhelmed, maybe. But they say, actually they're in better shape they have been in a long time because they canceled surgeries and things like that. But again, I'm not saying, even if the argument is the hospitals are overrun, they've been overrun historically through Ontario because the healthcare system, as much as it's free, unfortunately, it's lacking on the lacking on the availability sometimes, and depending on the area you're in. So again, when we look at that list, you got like it's a lot of the major areas where you're like Richmond, Peterborough, Hamilton, Ajax, Oshawa, Guelph, Scarborough. So it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's not ideal, but again, I think COVID has provided the opportunity for them to now put that in a different lens and point the blame that way. But again, the blame has been an issue for decades.
They have these field hospitals, right?
Uh-huh.
So if we've been over capacity for all this time, like even before COVID, why not make that a thing then? Like, I know they don't have enough, so why wasn't field hospitals a thing if we were so
overrun before? Because it wasn't a political thing before. Now it's a political thing. Look, we're prepared. Look, we have the capacity. Well, it's bad. We put up those tents.
And it is staffing too, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many nursing students coming out of school.
Well, the reality is it's Trudeau's budget doesn't even really include money for healthcare transfers. Come on. You say we're in the middle of a pandemic, then freaking act like it. Where's the money you should be spent? Like, do you think the budget would have come out and they would have been like, we need to spend money like crazy like healthcare?
More money for CBC.
No, And that's not what happened. But again, yeah, no, the field hospitals, to me, this is like a political statement as much as it's anything. But when people want to say, oh, the hospitals are overrun, and they probably can find hospitals in the GTA that are overrun. My point is, you could have done that last year, the year before that, 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 the year before. Like, it's stupid. No. Please do not make that argument. And can we start talking about that being a stupid argument? Because again, it's like we're looking at this when the story, like, stop looking at this when the story's this. Mm-hmm. Nothing I hate more than looking at government data, and I can't go back before COVID. All the COVID references sites, you know that? You can't go back before that. Like, you can't look like ILI data. You have to specifically find that information and kind of figure it out. You should be able to just compare. What if the hospitals, like, why isn't that stat out? If it is so bad, why isn't there just like an average hospital occupancy per day, and they could put up charts over the past 5 to 10 years and we could compare that and make, you know what I mean? If it is as bad as, like, where is the supporting evidence? Just point us towards it. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't have to be a question mark, and you shouldn't be punting out or kicking the can down the road to show your evidence to support your lockdowns in Alberta. You shouldn't be doing that when the evidence does supposedly support your position. It drives me up the wall.
Yeah, and like when I was back in my first year of school, I remember my first ever in-person interview with someone, and my program coordinator made it be a public servant. Didn't matter exactly if they were police. Just they didn't have to be just police.
Oh, I know the story you're talking about. Yeah.
Paramedic or police. But I decided I contacted the paramedic services here in Waterloo. I won't name who I talked to because it was just for an assignment. But I did speak with her, and she did tell me, this was back in, I guess it would have been 2018 or early 2019, that Waterloo region, when you take someone to the hospital, it's called hallway medicine. Yep. Because they're literally waiting to discharge these patients for so long in the hallways.
They were holding them in the ambulances to wait to offload them into a hallway. That's my understanding.
Yeah, they're literally literal lineups. And like even a few weeks after that came out, or that I spoke with her, I mean, there was reports from CTV about it. It's just like lineups of just waiting for hospitals, and you look back now and you think about it, it's utterly ridiculous when someone makes, like you were just saying, makes that argument. Oh, but we don't want to get hospitals anymore overrun. Like, they're already overrun. They've already been overrun forever. And one of my roommates loves to make that argument.
Like, listen, I'm not saying it's a good situation, and I'm not advocating for just open it up, let it rip kind of thing. Like, no, protect the most vulnerable. Do the pandemic. Mm-hmm. You say it's bad, so do the things that you would do in a normal epidemic or pandemic protocol. Like, you actually have in writing a book that says do X, Y, Z when this happens, and they're not. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the hospital situation, like, the media is, again, COVID has become a convenient scapegoat for a lot of issues, and the politicians now, it's like the problems never existed before. There's a lot of issues in a lot of countries where healthcare has been an issue. Like, I know, for instance, there's something in Peru right now. One of the variants is said to be ripping through there. Now, when I read up on it, again, like, this is not what you're hearing in the media over here. You're just seeing it's ripping through. And then I look up what's going on there, and I find a British medical journal article kind of on about what's going on there. And I find out they have less than 1,900 beds for a population of about 40 million. They have about 1,800, 1,900 critical care beds for the entire population of the country of about 40 million. Whereas the neighboring country of Colombia, their capital city of Bogota, that has 9 million, has more ICU beds than that. And I've also known that there's a shortage of oxygen in Peru. And so, there's going to be, it said basically in this article, there's going to be a lot of excess deaths right now in Peru, but a lot of that's likely because there's other viruses and things ripping through as well, and they're not receiving the care they need. And otherwise, it's also an apples to oranges comparison when people like to do things like this. It's like we want to compare different countries to the different countries, but it's not that simple. So in the case of over there, a lot of the communities don't have running water. 40% of over 40% of Peruvians don't own a fridge, a running fridge. So they go to the market every day and have to go. So there's more interaction, and they don't have, a lot of them don't have running water. And so they don't have a lot of great hygiene happening. That also, again, apples to oranges, but in the media, all you're going to see is case numbers, death numbers, and report. Right. And so this is kind of what the media does, is they pull a narrative out. It's like, have you seen that meme? It's the pile of skulls. It's a bad meme, but it's like, it's the media standing on a pile of skulls, and it's all the deaths from COVID measures, like lockdown measures, and they're just sitting on it, and they're taking a picture of somebody in a bed from COVID. That's the media. I haven't, but that's yeah. They focus on what they focus on, and the narrative follows.
And it's crazy. It's crazy thinking back just a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I guess now more like 2 or 3 years ago. But literally speaking with my professor and saying, you know, are kind of like a little bit arguing, but not. It was pretty mediated. Just saying, you know, I think the media bailouts are a bad thing. I think it's literally going to buy out the media. And he's like, well, no, I think they need the money because, you know, the industry's dying in some ways. And I'm like, sure, maybe, but they'll find new ways to adapt.
Yeah, like, guess what? In a free,
we got bailed out, and now look where we are.
Well, in a free market and true capitalism, this is what it's supposed to be. It's like, listen, you suck. You're not making money. Bye-bye. That's what's supposed to happen.
But with, and like, then, Bombardier and all these other companies.
Yeah, like, you shouldn't exist. And people freak out. All the jobs, and politicians harp in and blah, 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 blah. And then they bail them out. But it's like, reality is like, if GM were to go under here in Canada, are less cars going to be sold? No. The market's going to still have its demand met. Either people will pay more for GM vehicles outside of Canada from another or they would get other cars and things, and then the market would have to adapt, and it would be a slow, maybe there'd be a 5 to 10 year gap. But you know, if I was Ford or Honda or Kia, and I all of a sudden, because of that gap, I started selling way more vehicles, I might come bring the plant over here because it's cheaper for me to do that. And this is kind of like how the market's supposed to adjust. Instead, you had a politician come in, bail out, and they don't ever have to get better. And the same with the media. A lot of these outlets were starving for money, starving for funds, and teetering on the brink, and could not financially solvent. Government comes out, bails them, and it's like, are you going to bite the hand that feeds you, or you go under? Like, a lot of these companies wouldn't be viable if they didn't have bailout money. Let's just be real.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you should support independent Canadian media. and go to the Diverge Media dossier, so we don't become a statistic. I had to end on a laugh because, you know, you catch me crying on a live stream.
Yeah, so shirts will be in soon, actually.
Actually, yes. That's probably a good place to plug this.
Soon's a little early, but like
it's never too early. So we have pre-orders. If you're interested, let's pull the design first.
Probably by our next live stream, I think, if I have the day right. That's 14 days on today. Almost by our next live stream. For me and you, at least. Like me and Greg's next live stream in 2 weeks.
Okay, so it's actually the thumbnail for tonight. Why is it?
Most people must have seen it. But
I'm going to pull it up.
I can't wait to get one. They look... I don't even know what they look like on the shirt, but they look awesome how they are.
Well, so for people who don't know, well, I can't find it, but basically, if you look at the thumbnail from tonight, I'm not going to go digging. Basically, we worked with a designer, and he hand drew the design for the shirt.
Pull it up right now.
Yeah, do that for us. And then it's basically an angry beaver. You want to pull that up, and it's wearing a shirt with our logo on it. Can you zoom in at all?
I'm on my computer, my desktop, so I'm going to have to figure this one out really quick.
But wearing a shirt that says media is a virus. So the concept I like is that, you know, media is a virus that can affect good or bad. And so there you go, duality in a t-shirt. But that's going to be the design going on a t-shirt. We have them ordered. They're going to be black t-shirts.
Know, but
rookie.
I'm used to my Mac. I'm not used to my Windows to do all that kind of jazz.
So if you are interested, please message us soon because there is limited supplies. We don't have many in any size. Like we're only getting 4 to 6 in each size, and a bunch of them are already spoken for.
Yeah, I won't worry about taking one from the batch for now.
No, I'm taking.
I'm gonna order myself a custom sweater.
Okay,
Probably.
but they will be $35 plus shipping and handling cost. There is no tax. That is tax included in that cost. It's baked into the cost. So if that's something that interests you, please let us know. Message us on Facebook or by divergemedia@outlook.com. And or yes, I was just about to go there. Jeez, producers giving me heck. But also, we're going to be bringing our hats and our t-shirts to rallies. So if you know that we're going to a rally to cover something, or you catch us at a rally, we will have merch live on the scene. So you can also get it there and save the shipping, which is it's terrible in Canada. It's like $15 to $20 minimal, no matter where.
I feel like t-shirts will be less, so I think we should.
Listen, a hat?
No, it's going to be $15 to $20,
right?
Nope.
No,
it's anything under like 500 grams or a half pound. I think is the same amount. It doesn't matter. It's all the,
I don't know.
Yo, trust me, I could tell you. Oh, you want to talk shipping? I can talk shipping, man. I've learned so much about it. I hate it.
Do you want to go on to the Tucker thing really quick?
Yeah, let's go on to
after.
Yeah. No. On the shipping thing, I have to buy boxes in bulk. I have to buy sleeves in bulk.
Well, I gotta order those.
I'm just gonna have stuff in my house until this is all sold. So you better buy it quick. I got a small house and I got to put up inventory, guys. All right, let's go.
All right. So Tucker put out this, so the Post Millennial brought this up, Kate, or whoever's got this. Post Millennial brought this up on Twitter, that Tucker had someone from the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, go through his yearbook, call up old classmates, and see if they could find some dirt on him.
Before we go tonight, a quick piece of news from the world of big tech. We spent the day hearing from quite a few old college classmates, in some cases people we've been out of touch with for 30 years. It was nice, but here was the occasion for it. Jeff Bezos had one of his minions, a mentally unbalanced middle-aged man called Eric Wempel, pull our dusty college yearbook and call around to see if we'd done anything naughty at the age of 19. That sounds like fun. Let us know if you hear any good stories. But before Bezos drops any more of his billions on opposition research, you should know that it will not affect any election outcome. This is a news show. It's not a political campaign. No one here is running for anything or plans to. On the other hand, if Jeff Bezos wants to come over to reminisce about 1987 on this show, he's always welcome anytime. Before we go tonight, a quick piece of news.
So that came out, and then actually just before the live stream, the left is pulling string. I don't know what to think of it, but they've put out that he used to be a part. So there's a piece of his yearbook that was put in this article, and it was tweeted. I'm going to bring this up really quick. I had it in the article, but I want to zoom in on it. So supposedly this is part of his yearbook. It says that he was a part of the Dan White Society, which I guess from the tweet, Dan White was the man who killed Harvey Milk, who was a very strong supporter back in the day when it wasn't normal to be a supporter of LGBTQ rights and stuff like that. So they've pulled this from his yearbook and they're trying to scandal him like they.
Okay, but hold up. Did the scandal with this guy that he was involved with way back in the day? Like, did that happen before or after he knew him?
This happened. So I looked at it. So Tucker is only Tucker. I don't know exactly how old Tucker is, but I looked it up before. He was born in 1969. The man was murdered after that, about 9-10 years after that. Or sorry, before that. Oh my god. Well, after that, yes, in the 78, I believe.
Oh no. So hold up, it was 8 years after he was involved with a group with him. You get why I'm bringing this up, like.
No, it doesn't make sense. You can't just pull like stuff from something.
No, but even further. So they're trying to go into his past. That's a separate issue.
So the man.
So it's 7 years after he does something, and then they try to be like, but he knew him 7 years prior, and now he's bad.
No, listen. So Harvey Milk was killed in 1978.
Okay.
So he was born in 1969. So by that math, Tucker would have only been 9 years old when he died. So when he was in high school, he was in the Dan White Society, the man who killed Harvey Milk. But they don't know for sure what the article is saying. And I will clarify this, that it's the same Dan White that killed. So that's what they're trying to pull strings at here, right?
No. So they don't even know if it's
White
the person
Society
that they're using the smear on, but they're going to put it in the headline.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to pull right now. So that's what I was
Media,
trying to
everyone.
here. That's what they're trying to pull because they couldn't get anything else really. As far as it seemed like, this is what has come out tonight that they're trying to get him on, and I don't know how much they're going to succeed. I mean, if you look at the Justin Trudeau, it didn't pan out well for him, but he's still
the man's a Teflon.
So
human Teflon.
I mean, to the same standard we do dumb when we're young, and that. But I don't know how to justify certain things.
No, it's not about justifying certain things. It's literally like you put in this snapshot. Yeah, you'd want to know if somebody was involved with something stupid, egregious, right? Then that's important as a public figure. But I mean, like, again, to go searching like through 20 years of history to try to, and then to write, it's not a matter of like they found it. It's a matter that they wrote it. And then they're like, we don't even know if it's the same person. It's like, then why are you writing it? Like, if you found out it's the same person, then you could maybe write the article. Maybe. Right?
So journalist Travis Ackers located and posted the yearbook shot, which has not yet been verified. So Travis Ackers is a journalist for... Apparently he was in the U.S. Navy, and he was a journalist. He's a journalist for Newsweek and Medium.
Okay. All right. Well, it's getting time to close this up. I got 2 things left for everyone here tonight. So let's go first. Oh, that is the wrong page. But this is Public Health Ontario. Out of total hospitalized cases, 20,440 in hospital, 4.8% of them are with COVID. And this is why we shut down the province. 4.8%. And then moving on, sorry, just want to talk about a study, not that one. This was referenced by Derek Sloan, new research on vitamin D in respiratory infections important for risk groups. This is by the Karolinska Institute. And they said in this that there was, okay, so now, where is it? The results are based on 43 randomized and placebo-controlled studies on the possible relationship between vitamin D and respiratory infections involving almost 49,000 participants. The material the researchers have drawn on comprise published as well as registered but as yet unpublished studies and is the most comprehensive such compilation to date. The new study adds further information about vitamin D as a protection against respiratory infections, but does not cover the question of whether vitamin D can protect against COVID-19. So they're talking about respiratory infections. It wasn't specifically designed for COVID-19, but we'll read here. Daily dose most effective. A particularly high dose doesn't seem necessary. Those who received 400 to 1,000 IU a day had the best response, as the group that received such a dose showed protective effect of about 40% against respiratory infections. Again, wasn't specifically for COVID-19, but respiratory infections, you would presume that would carry over, and it would have to be looked at and examined in further studies. I want to stress that there were no signals in the study that normal doses of vitamin D were dangerous or caused adverse reactions. So they said a daily dose of vitamin D can protect the bones and perhaps also reduce the risk of respiratory infections in vulnerable groups. The wider population will probably not benefit as much from the supplement, though. Vitamin D doesn't make healthy people healthier. But in Canada, we have something called winter, and we don't get enough sun. And with lockdowns, that's likely exacerbated. So many people are probably facing vitamin D deficiency. Doesn't hurt. So you can look at the Karolinska Institute study on that, and if their opinion on things and what they found from the studies, you believe that that's something that interests you, vitamins are cheap. Go get yourself some vitamin D.
5,000 IU daily, eh? I take
5,000, 400 to 1,000.
Well, this somebody's counting this. I don't know. I take about 2 of those small pills every day.
Yeah.
I think it's what's up, probably 2,000. I think. I take vitamin C, omega-3, vitamin D, and I have caffeine supplements because I'm weird. Apparently,
You are
but
right.
back on the censorship thing, if that does become a real thing, I would urge everyone who likes our content and would like to follow along with us. Actually, I don't know if this even makes sense. It's not really even related, but on the website, if you'd like to follow us via email, when we publish, it'll come out right away. Bottom of the site on the homepage, you can type in your email address. I don't know how this is going to be affected, but join our email list. Then we have your emails. It'll work in a way.
Typically 1 article a day, Monday through Friday, sometimes 2. And we're trying to get through Monday through Sunday, but I don't want to have to work every weekend and every day. So I write an article Monday to Friday. Broderick writes 2 to 3 a week. Paul started writing, and Hazar Al-Sabah has come on, excuse me, from Sunday Preach and is collaborating with us. So look for her articles on Sunday. But yeah, that's pretty much it from us tonight. It's been I think we've pretty much covered everything we want to cover. So it's a good way to end it. But again, if there's anything we take away from tonight, I hope it's that, again, this we'll just read here. The court case from the Justice Center. So the Alberta government supposedly has enough medical and scientific evidence to shut down hundreds of small businesses. And I'll say that the Canadian government, it's the same situation. They should just provide the evidence. They shouldn't have to be coerced from them. But speaking specifically of the Alberta government in this case, the Alberta government supposedly has enough medical and scientific evidence to shut down hundreds of small businesses, pushing many of them into bankruptcy and to cancel over 20,000 medically necessary surgeries and to force Albertans into a 3rd lockdown. But when asked to produce this medical and scientific evidence at trial, the Alberta government declares itself incapable of doing so. That, according to John Carpe of the Justice Center, the president. So that's a good place to end it. Thank you for joining us. If you're new to the channel and you haven't tuned in before, make sure to subscribe. Again, every 2 weeks, Wednesday night, me and Broderick, and every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, we do the Sunday show where we wrap up the week's events. Thank you for joining. I'm Greg Staley signing off.
And I'm Broderick Visser. Thank you all. This is very exciting times for us. Have a good night.